Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Shifty's 49ers Talk. In today's video, we're going to be covering the first 2 days of 49ers training camp. There is a lot to talk about. I'm super excited. It's great to see all the players back out on the field. Well, at least most of them back out on the field. But yeah, a lot to get into, so let's not waste any time. We're going to jump right in. So, a couple of notes that I've taken from, different reports that we've seen online, postings by different beat writers, things of that nature. So let's start off initially with the offense. And I think it makes sense to start off with our brand new franchise quarterback, officially the starter. That is, of course, Trey Lance. So far, a lot of reports after the first 2 days, up and down, and that's really to be expected. Couple of things. He's going up against a defense that looks like it's primed to be top 3, top 5 minimum at what we've seen so far. Not only that, Trey Lance is still, of course, very, very young, very, very raw, so to be expected that he's going to make mistakes, but that's the thing. I'm looking to see those mistakes happen and then to see Trey Lance learn from them. That's the biggest key. Like, now is the time to make those mistakes. You want to take risks. You want to be aggressive in training camp. Then you review the film, learn from the mistakes, and then you go out there and then execute the play correctly. Not only that, too, let's focus on the fact that, two of maybe the best players on offense are not out there currently for the 49ers. Trent Williams is going to be, he's on family leave right now. Some personal issues going on, not an injury concern. And then, of course, the Deebo Samuel situation that is still yet to be figured out. Deebo Samuel's there on the sidelines, running a little bit and whatnot, but not out there running routes, competing against the DBs. So far, it's really hard to gauge, what we have in Trey Lance. I love what I saw last year as a very raw rookie playing in a number of games. Looks like he's made some nice plays here. He's tightened up that motion, so that really helps out with regards to timing. And that he did make a big play today with his legs, which he gained would have gained 20, 30 yards. Something that another, facet of the offense that we wouldn't have seen with a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo. So overall, very encouraged by what I've seen by Trey Lance and the mistakes and things like that, the interceptions. Not a concern yet. If he's still making them weak, as we are into the regular season, that's going to be cause for concern. But overall, love what I see from Trey Lance and really, really excited about the future with him. Moving on to the offensive line. Now, this is where there's a lot of moving parts going on. Trent Williams, as I mentioned, he's not out there currently, so Colton McKivitz has been taking the starting snaps at left tackle. To me, he figures to be somewhat of a lock for the 53-man roster. We had Colton McKivitz play left tackle in that huge Week 18 game last year at the Rams, and he's taking reps right here so far, so I like his spot on the roster. Left guard, Aaron Banks, haven't heard too much negative or positive. Typically, that's a good thing for an offensive lineman. After that's where it gets a little bit more interesting. At center, seems like Jake Brendel will initially start the day out there, but Daniel Brunskill has been getting a lot of snaps at center too. So there's a lot of things at play here. We also look at the right guard position. Rookie Spencer Burford, good for him. He's getting a bunch of reps with the first team. Now, Kyle Shanahan did say that they'd be mixing it up as we progress through training camp, so it's not like these positions are set in stone as the starters just yet. But interesting to see a guy like Spencer Burford out there at right guard. I think, Daniel Brunskill knows how to play right guard for the 49ers, so maybe they're thinking he doesn't necessarily need those reps at right guard because he's just played there for so many years. Maybe get him some more reps at center in case he needs to move to center, whether Brendel struggles or if Brendel were to get hurt at some point. So other players that I'm really interested to see are second-year player Jaylen Moore. He looks to be possibly the backup right tackle behind Mike McGlinchey. That's also really important. We know McGlinchey's coming back from a very serious injury. I think they're going to ease McGlinchey back in, but he's another guy who's played with the Niners for a number of years. So in terms of reps in training camp, they're not as important to a guy like McGlinchey as they might be for a guy like Jaylen Moore. Although I do expect to see McGlinchey a decent amount when it comes to preseason games, just so he can get back up to playing speed against opposing players. So overall, there's a lot of moving parts here with the offensive line. A lot of players I haven't even talked about yet. The battles here are going to be really, really interesting, especially on the interior of the offensive line. Moving on from the offensive line, let's look at the wide receivers. Brandon Ayuk has looked fantastic so far. Of course, he's been working with Trey Lance a lot in the offseason, so they've really been able to build that chemistry and rapport. That's great to see it showing when it comes to training camp so far. We've also seen Ray McLeod make a couple of plays, and Danny Gray today had a big catch from Brock Purdy, so that's really good to see that rookie-to-rookie connection. Overall, we're missing, our best wide receiver. I love Brandon Ayuk, but let's be real, Deebo Samuel is wide receiver number 1, and they're going up against some darn good cornerbacks. So overall, you'd have to say the cornerbacks have gotten the better of the receivers, but that's to be expected for a number of reasons. Not only the talent that's their cornerback, but typically defenses will have the edge early on in training camp. At tight end, look, we know George Kittle, he is the starting guy. The big thing which I'm looking to see, and we haven't really heard too much reports over the last couple of days of the backup tight ends, but I'm really curious to see who's going to step up, especially for guys like Ross Dwelley, newly signed Tyler Kroft. There's a couple of other guys, Tanner Hudson out there, Troy Fumagalli, Jordan Matthews. Charlie Werner, who a lot of people pencil in as that number 2 tight end, he's actually on the physically unable to perform list. That doesn't mean he's going to miss the 6 games or whatever. It's a little bit different when we're still, before the regular season. But this is an opportunity for these guys to maybe work themselves into consideration for that number 2 or number 3 tight end spot. As of right now, we haven't heard a ton about the tight end position, but it's something to keep an eye on as training camp moves forward. Similar to the tight end position, the running back is also fairly, it's going to be in the same vein as that. So with the running backs, hasn't been fully padded practices yet. So from what we've read and heard, rookie Jordan Mason seems to have been making a nice impact and made some nice plays so far. Elijah Mitchell seems to be figured into the passing game a lot more, made a couple of nice catches from Trey Lance so far in training camp. But the running back position is going to be one to look at as training camp moves along once we get the fully padded practices and, of course, the preseason games. So really not a whole lot to go off just yet when we look at the running back position. Let's now move on to the defensive side of the ball. And all I can say is, wow, this defense looks amazing. One of the things that I'm really, really excited about is the fact that our secondary looks to be much improved. I think I read maybe about 4 or 5 different beat reporters, 49ers journalists talk about just how much the secondary looks improved. Mainly the guys we want to talk about, Charvarius Ward and Emmanuel Moseley. Those guys both look like lockdown guys at cornerback so far, so that's really great to see. Last year, Emmanuel Moseley played very well for the 49ers, didn't even give up a touchdown all year, played about, 10, 11 games, so that's really good to see. Plus, newly signed Charvarius Ward, seemingly fitting in very well in this style of defense, and he is looking as advertised, a guy who can go up against other teams' number 1 wide receivers. The big question mark here when we look at cornerback is going to be who's going to be out there in nickelback situations. So Darqueze Dennard looks like he's been out there quite a bit. Could we see rookie Samuel Womack? He's putting in a lot of work so far. Of course, we always have guys like Dante Johnson. Jason Verrett figures to be back from injury at some point, but my opinion, I don't have any medical opinion on it, but my just general sense is that I think Jason Verrett will probably be put on the physically unable to perform list into the regular season, where he'll miss about 6 games and then come back and potentially be that nickelback guy. But that's really the battle to look at. Who's going to be the nickelback? Because we know in the NFL these days, a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. And then also, there's a ton of battles at just depth, even at outside cornerback. We look at Ambry Thomas, Diamador Lenore, Tariq Castro-Fields, even Dante Johnson. A number of guys are battling for those positions out there. So as training camp comes along, it's going to be really, really interesting to see. But overall, we got to be very encouraged by the cornerback play, especially compared to what we saw last year, which was just atrocious. Sticking with the secondary, and the safeties are also appearing to be really, really on their game so far. So Jimmy Ward's looked great. He had an interception off Trey Lance in today's practice. Hufanga's been putting in crazy work, and what I like to hear is that he's become more of a vocal leader, something that D'Amico Ryans has asked of Talanoa Hufanga to really just step up into that role and to solidify himself as the starter. Looks like we've also seen some decent plays from George Odom, laid a big hit on Ayuk, who still managed to come up with the pass, I believe. Charvarius Moore is out there. Rookie Leon O'Neal Jr. is out there making plays. So really, just reassuring to see that the secondary is performing well so far. Then let's talk about our linebackers. And wow, they're special. This linebacking core is absolutely special. When you look at Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Azeez Al-Shaair, I think it's far and away the best linebacking core in the NFL. When we're on those base downs, just the amount of talent out there is just ridiculous. We have to be super excited about the linebacking position. Not only that, some nice depth pieces there too. So we're looking at Oren Burks, we're looking at Demetrius Flanagan-Foles, and then there's a couple of other guys too who have been making some plays as well. So overall, man, the linebacking situation is probably the best that we've been in. As long as I can remember. Potentially the depth is even better than when we had Willis and Bowman. So really excited about that, and really excited to see what they can do this year. It's going to be really special. Last but not least, the defensive line. And from all accounts, Nick Bosa is looking like he could be the defensive player of the year, maybe the MVP. He's just making guys look silly out there, even in individual just drills. There was that video where it's him and Kimoko Ture, and Bosa just made Ture look really, really bad. Bosa is looking primed for a fantastic season. I know D'Amico made a great point in his press conference today that last year Bosa was, just focusing on rehabbing and getting back from injury. This year he's focused on just getting even better than what he's been before. So big things of course for Nick Bosa. Overall, the defensive line is definitely winning the battles against the offensive line, but let's keep in mind Trent Williams isn't out there. Mike McGlinchey's been in and out of there. And also the pads are not on, so that typically would favor the defensive players, especially those speedy edge rushers. However, it's very, very encouraging just to see the play, of the defensive line. Seemingly Drake Jackson has made a couple of nice plays so far, the rookie from USC. I'm really excited to see how he develops as the year goes along. But I think what's really on display is the depth that the 49ers have. Today, Eric Armstead had a day off. Not sure the exact reasons for that, but then you have a guy like Charles Omenihu step in. Javon Kinlaw out there just looks massive. And then we just know the depth that we have on the defensive line. So, wow, the defense should be a very special unit. Hopefully we stay as healthy as realistically possible. But this could be one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the NFL. So overall, to really sum up how training camp is gone, it's gone pretty much as I would have expected it to. Of course, the defense is going to have the advantage early on, and they're looking like they're fantastic. It's one of those things where when you look at training camp, there's two ways. You can be either positive or negative. So the negative, what you could say is Trey Lance doesn't look great and blah, blah, blah. Or you could be positive, and that's kind of how I'm going to be, is that, and I think it's the more realistic, likely thing too, is the fact that he's still very much learning. Does he learn from his mistakes? Hopefully he will. But not only that, it shows that our defense is primed to be awesome. So when we look at how the offense is doing, it's kind of hard to, because if the offense has a great day, then you're worried about the defense. If the defense has a great day, then it's worried about the offense. So overall, I just think that these are two excellent units. But let's keep in mind, Trent Williams hasn't been out there, neither has Deebo Samuel, and it takes offenses longer to really gel and to get those, the timing down and the rhythm down. So, if anyone is anyway slightly discouraged about the offense, don't be. It's still very, very early on, and I think this offense, is going to be, I'll put it this way to kind of round off the video. This offense is consistently in practice going up against a top 5 defense. So the majority of the time when they play teams in the regular season, it's going to be a step down the defenses they're playing against. So that really just helps out the offense tremendously. And it's really going to push, Kyle Shanahan and Anthony Lynn and the rest of the offensive coaching staff to have to be as creative as possible and to really have to put in their best work in order to have success against this defense of ours, and then to really implement the changes to have Trey Lance set up for success, which I think he is. He's got a lot of weapons. He's got a really solid offensive line. So I just can't wait to see what's going to happen here. But I'm going to leave it there, guys. Please do share your thoughts about training camp so far in the comments. I love to hear it. Don't forget liking and subscribing. It really helps out the channel, and it means a lot to me. Not only that, I'm going to say 2 things to finish this off. The butt counts. And then I'm going to catch y'all on the flip side.